Last time on the FXNT Modpack, I built a sand making machine that generates a whole bunch of different types of sandstone and different varieties of sand through this very janky and temporary setup. And the idea of this is to generate as many blocks as I can very quickly so that I can build a big old sand castle around this desert village. And the reason I want to do that is to keep all of the villagers in it that keep trying to escape and run into things like cactuses and train lines and zombies and things. Basically, I want to keep them all safe. And this machine hasn't been running for too long, but we've already amassed a ridiculous amount of blocks, and I've already decided that several of them I don't even like. I like all of the different sandstone varieties, they're all great, but the actual sand varieties themselves I don't like, and that's because the chipped mod that we're using for all of these different variations doesn't do a very good job with sand, whereas it does a very good job with the sandstone. For instance, the sandstone blocks that are from the chip mod, these three, match very well with the original sandstone from the Minecraft game. However, the Minecraft sand, which matches the desert floor, doesn't look anything like the same color as the sand that we're getting from the chip mod. This is too orange and this just looks like a very pale honey block. I don't like either of them, which means I need to design walls and turrets and things that use the blocks that I do like. And there is one more type of sandstone that we're not generating that I'd very much like to add to this build because I think it will help. That block, of course, is smooth sandstone. And you get smooth sandstone from smelting down normal sandstone or blasting normal sandstone. And we can set up a system for that very easily using the system we've already got in place. All we need to do is throw a mechanical fan on here, throw a little bit of glass down at the sides, put in a trapdoor there, throw a bucket of lava there. We're going to stick a double chest on here like that with a funnel going in the side. Then we've got a filter that says no sandstone. We're going to put that on there. Then we're going to flip open this trapdoor, throw a chute above it, put a chest on here. And if we look in this chest, you can see I've already been doing this a little bit just to test it. This is going to turn our sandstone into smooth sandstone just by throwing that sandstone into there. That's going to drop down there, get smelted, and it won't go into here until it's fully cooked. Just like that. And now we've got a system for doing that, we can start thinking about how we're going to be building these walls and turrets and things. Coming back to our blocks, we've got a variety of sandstone blocks that are relatively heavily textured, and I think it makes sense to have these lower down on the walls where it looks like the sand's been a bit more compressed, and also where we want structure like the foundation, so things like the corners and the bottoms of the walls. And then that leaves us with three types of less structured blocks, which we can use for the internals of the walls, where the smooth sandstone looks a little bit more like compressed sand, so perhaps lower down in the walls, and the cut sandstone sort of fits in with that as well. So first things first, I've loaded my backpack with all of the different varieties of sand and sandstone that I want to take, and this has an advanced refill upgrade in it. That means if I pick this up, put it in this last slot here, I can still access my main backpack, but then when I'm working with the sandstone, if I run out of a particular block, all I need to do is middle click on it, and it's going to take that out of this backpack all the way over here and put that into my inventory. So that's very useful. Now that we've got that sorted out, we're going to work on our first corner pillar, and that's going to be over in this corner here, and I'm going to come up with a design for that, and then we'll be able to mimic that in the other corners where we want these walls to be. And I think I want the walls relatively close to this line of buildings here, which means this stuff's probably going to have to be disappeared. I don't think it's particularly useful. So yes, I'm going to designate this as our starting point. Get building. And there we go. The first little tower is done, and this is going to serve as the first corner, and I've tried to keep it as in keeping with the rest of the village as possible. So of course we've got the spruce in there, we've got the sand and the sandstone, and I think it works great. And obviously this has got two layers. We're going to have a walkway that runs through the wall all the way around this thing, and we're going to have, obviously, on top of the wall that's going to be joining these things, another walkway which we can get round. So things are definitely moving forward. Now what I'm going to do is build this a whole bunch more times, but I'm not going to obviously build them one by one individually. That would take forever. I need these dotted all the way around this entire village, and the quickest and easiest way of doing that, of course, is going to be with a schematic cannon. And then once I've got them all in place, I can build the walls and the walkways between. And yes, I know there's technical terms for all of these castle-y things, but I don't know them, and I can't remember them, so I'm going to call them walls and the corner bits. Okay? Jeez. Right, schematic cannon. So I've taken a schematic of that turret, and we're going to place the first one, I guess, where we want the entrance to this to be, and it would make sense to have that somewhere over here. So I'm thinking, obviously it's going to be in line, but around about there. But if we have the entrance here, there's no easy way into the village, so maybe the entrance would be better where we've actually got an avenue into the village somewhere. So perhaps down this bit, or even right at the back over here. Or we could just demolish some more of the villagers' buildings like this one. I think that makes sense. So let's just stick that down there roughly for now, and then let's just adjust it so it's definitely in line with the other one. And we don't just want it in line horizontally, we also need it in line vertically. Get myself on the corner there, that way a bit. I think that's in line there, yes it is. And the corner here is on Y69. Keep your minds out of the gutter. So, of course, this bit also needs to be on Y69, and it is not. So it needs to go up a block. There we go. And now that that is in place and in line with the other one, I can just throw the schematic cannon down. We've got our backpack full of all of our sands and everything we need to build this. So let's just pop the schematic into the cannon, throw in our gunpowder, and just make sure that we've got everything that we want set in on here. So replace solid with empty would be a good idea. We don't need to worry about that, and we will skip missing blocks. And off we go. The first turret can start getting built. And I'm just going to do this around the entire perimeter. It's going to take a while. And there we go. Just 2 hours later, we now have 16 towers. That's a lot of towers. And I think they blend in with the village nicely. You can't really tell that they're all there, can you? Maybe you can. But yeah, we've got a whole bunch of towers. We do change the elevation slightly at this point here. We come down, we're going to have a diagonal walkway across between these two buildings. Then we all go to nice straight lines again, and I've done terraforming as I've been going around here to make sure everything's actually on the ground and not in the water or like underneath a mountain. And then when we come round here, we come back this way, and at which point, oh, in fact, at this point here where the elevation changes back to the original again, so we're coming back up here along the side of the village here and back to where we started. So we've got a whole bunch of these things, and every single one of them has a completely different distance between them, which means it's going to be very difficult for me to design a single wall or walkway between them both. That a balustrade? Is it a balustrade? The wall that goes between them. But yes, I'm not going to be able to just design one wall and then just schematic that in between each one. I'm going to have to design sections of walls and then make them fit, because the other thing I haven't done is actually measured the distance between each one. So some are going to be odd numbers, some are going to be even numbers, and that means I'm going to have to do a whole lot of manual adjustment. So I think I design one short wall, schematic that in between as many as possible, and wherever it won't fit or wherever it needs adjusting, I'll do that, particularly on this diagonal over here, which is going to need its own completely unique one, unless I actually add another tower in this corner, which I am tempted to do. Yeah, that might make sense. I kind of like the idea of having a diagonal one though, but I think that might be difficult. We'll see how we get on with that. But anyway, yes, I've got a whole bunch of wall building to do now. And I suppose it makes sense to start off at our first tower and just build the first one going over to there and see how it goes. So I'm thinking for the very bottom, we're going to be using these pillar blocks along the edges like this. Then we're going to organize our hotbar, taking the pillar sandstone ones off. We're going to move these backpacks for a second, and I'm just going to duplicate this sandstone a few times like this. I'm going to keep the bricks in, and I'm going to throw a little bit of sand in there as well. And then when I enable the shuffle mod and I do this, we're going to get the majority of it with the smooth top and just some bricks here and there, which makes it look like a little bit of a worn down walkway. And this is where I could really do with another backpack upgrade, because as much as it's fine middle clicking on a block when I've run out of them to replace them, when I'm doing this shuffle mod thing and I run out of them, it doesn't really work. I could do with it just replacing things as I'm using them. And there is a backpack upgrade for that. At the moment, I'm using this advanced refill upgrade, but I believe what I actually need is the advanced restock upgrade. But before I do that, I'm just going to finish off this little bit of walkway so that it's the same as everything else. There we go. And now I can shove all of that sand back in my backpack and see if I've got any of the materials I need over here already for making this upgrade. Where's my other backpack? Oh, it's here. I thought I might have some blank upgrades in here. I don't. So I'm going to need at least 2 blank upgrade bases. I'm going to need some sticky pistons, which means I've not got any slime balls. I guess I'm going back to the workshop, which means I need my new packages out, my farm station package, so I can go on my automated train back to the place where I need to go. Unfortunately, however, it's not automated enough to go in the right direction, so I'm going to have to spin it round first, but then I can open the train, deposit my package in here, and off we go with my driver all the way back to my farm. You been busy? Have you been out long? What time are you on till? I never know what to say to a taxi driver. And here we are, just a few minutes later, arriving at my destination. Thank you very much, driver. I appreciate the lift. Don't forget to get the package out of the mailbox so I can use it again later. And now we're going to go and make these upgrades. Slime. Oh, I do have slime. Good. So that means I can craft a couple of sticky pistons, grab myself a restock upgrade, which I'm hoping it is, and I'm also going to get myself a deposit upgrade, and I want to make both of these ones advanced ones. But I've run out of diamonds? Well, that's not good. How have I run out of... I used my last diamond on that? I guess I need to go I didn't want to go I'm busy. Oh, well, before I do that, I'm just going to put these into this actual backpack. And then I'm going to grab a very, very few sands like this. And I'm hoping as I place that, it's going to restock. No, I guess. Oh, geez. Well, that sucks. Restocks backpack from sneak right-clicked inventory. I don't know what that means. Deposits items from backpack into sneak right-clicked inventory. Oh, does that mean like if I open a chest? Oh, so let's say there's 32 sand in there and I sneak right click that. No? What does it mean? All right, okay, let's turn that one off and sneak right click that. Nothing happened at all. Let's turn that one off and sneak right click. Nothing happened at all. I mean, I could use toolboxes. I guess that's what these are for, but the range is rubbish. And I never know how these work. I just click sand like that, and is that going to restock from the toolbox if I put more sand in there? Grab a bit of sand and throw that into there. Is that going to refill me with sand if I was to run out? Oh yeah, look, if I try and take some, it just keeps... Okay, so I could use a toolbox. I don't like toolboxes. I could make the range bigger, I suppose, but it's what my backpack is for. Advanced refill upgrade. Keeps refilling stack of selected item in player's inventory. Allows for more precise target slot selection. And also allows... So I already had the one I needed. Why doesn't it work? Maybe I have to put the things I want refilling in there. If I was to just put some sand in there, any slot. Okay. So now... Oh yeah, there we go. So I already had the upgrade. Oh, well, I guess I need to put all of my different sand types into my backpack then, so it knows the things that I want to keep refilled of. That said, now my backpack is going to be full of these whether I want them to be in there or not, which is potentially not that ideal, because if I try and put them away in my backpack, they keep coming back again. But I can turn it on and off, so I suppose that's useful. So I guess back at the desert then, I can now use that in order to make this a whole bunch more easily. Right, next, the walls for these walls and walkways. Now, the way I did these was I started off with the brick layers further down with the sandstone attached to that, then the smooth sandstone and the cut sandstone, and then the sand, and then I sort of did everything from the corners. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So we're mainly going to be using these blocks, and if we just start with these in the corners a little bit like this, then we can add some sort of rough sandstone next to those, try and keep it a little bit random, then some smooth sandstone next to those blocks there, then the cut sandstone, and then finally bits of sand, and then you start to get a little bit of a gradient into the sort of more worn and compressed areas of where the sand is. Of course, along here I do need to rough this up with a little bit of brick as well, and then once I'm happy with these little corner bits here, I can then come along a bit and maybe have another brick section there, a little bit more here, maybe a slightly different shape, and a little bit more over here, maybe missing a block here and there, and then coming back to the corner over there. We're going to do the same thing again, and then I'm going to do exactly the same over on this side. Don't escape. All the way to the end of both ends, and then I'm just going to do exactly the same thing with the different types of sandstones. Again, keeping it relatively random, but with some sort of uniformity to it as well. Don't escape. Stop climbing on my wall. See, now you're on the wrong side of the wall. You need to be... Yes, that's it. Go the other way. No, not in the wall. The other side. Stay. Go back to the village. So as you can see, that kind of ends up looking a little bit like this, which is a bit wavy. But by the time we've got the full wall in, it should look a lot better. And then what I do once I've got to this point is basically do the exact same thing in reverse until we get to the point which is the highest point of the wall. Now, this walkway is, of course, going to be in line with this, which means the highest point of the wall is going to be at that point there. So we've got a little bit further to go up. And I think the smart thing to do at this point is re-enable the shuffle mod and start putting this next walkway in. So at least we know where we're building up to. There we go, just like that. Then at this point here, we can have another line of these pillar blocks, I think. Then I'm going to engage shuffle again, and this is the point where I'm going to make the little stand-uppy bits that go along the wall. Stand-uppy bits? Yeah, I know all the technical terms, guys. Don't you worry about it. I know every single one. Now we've got those in. We can disable shuffle again, and then we're just going to throw a whole bunch of slabs in between these. Now we're going to re-enable shuffle, and we're going to break a bunch of these, just randomly here and there. And we're going to just replace those with these different types of bricks, which keep the same horizontal texture, but are messier. So it looks like the wall's a little bit broken and older. Just like that. There we go. So now our little walkway bits look like this, because they've got big holes in, which is not ideal. So now I need to finish the walls off. So coming back up to the top, I'm going to do exactly the same thing I did below, but in reverse. So starting with the brick, blending that into the sandstone, blending that into the cut sandstone, and then that's going to go into the smooth sandstone. And then we're going to get sort of areas where there's a lot more brick, and then areas where there's just a lot more smooth sandstone. And then I'll come along a little bit where there's a bit more brick here and sort of build this down a bit. Do exactly the same thing here. Blend it in with the other blocks. And then when we've got big holes like that that's left over, we can just fill those up with a random variety of the blocks that I think are going to fit there. But I'm going to finish this off first. And so after not too long, I've now got both sides of the wall just like this, which I think looks pretty decent. We just need to fill all of those holes in. So I'm just going to enable shuffle mod, fill in all of the holes with a random selection of the blocks that we've been using for this wall. And aside from them looking incredibly flat and completely lacking in the spruce or any sort of depth or variety, I think the walls look absolutely fine in terms of the brickwork that I've done. So yeah, we need it to look a whole bunch nicer than that. So I think we should start with some of these framed slab edges along the top like this to give it a little bit of a lip that sticks out. And then again, using the shuffle mod, we can texture those with a handful of the different blocks that I've got on my hotbar, so they don't all look the same from the outside. That makes them blend a little bit better, but adds a little bit of depth. But it's nowhere near enough. We need windows and holes and peepee bits. Peepee bits? Yes, bits for your for bits to look out of. And there we go. I think that's more than enough detail. For the sides, we've got this sort of archway in the middle to signify a sort of a closed gate that's never going to be open to allow the villagers out. We've got the little windows, we've got some lanterns and the logs sticking out, and I've even gone along the bottom with some stairs and some other blocks just to bring the wall out a little bit so it didn't just feel too flat going into the sand below. So now all I've got to do is mimic that over on this side as well, because this side is currently very, very flat. That said, kind of like the idea that the side facing the villagers is very flat, because I don't want them getting ideas that there's something on the outside that they might want to get to. So maybe we don't add anything on this side. Maybe just the lip bit and the top bit of wood, but no windows or gateways. That seems fair, right? There we go. I think that's fine for the villagers' side. Absolutely no windows at all, so they can't ever get in there to see if there's anything interesting on the other side. And then a little bit more detail on the side that's going to be facing me, because I want to look at nice things. I don't want to be looking at the same bland stuff as the villagers. Jeez. Right, yes, so now I've got one wall in, I've got to make that work for every single one of these other ones. Oh, jeez, I'm going to be quite a while. And you guys wonder why these videos take so long to make? Because I make stupid decisions like building sandcastles. Jeez, what a moron. Jeez, that took some time, but now we have a wall going the entire way around this entire village, meaning that none of those pesky villagers can escape and get themselves involved with any lavas or cactuses or train lines, which is nice. And hopefully, yes, during that time, the majority of them should have survived. It did get to nighttime a few times, but I don't think we've got any zombies in here, which is nice. And of course, yes, this wall does go all the way around. However, there is one minor problem with this wall, and that is that a couple of the bits are a little bit dark, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue, I'm hoping. So at the moment, my entrance to this wall is here. It's the only way to get in and out of this wall other than flying over it. And if we walk through this entrance here, if we go either side, we've got a little staircase up the first tower. And once we go up the staircase, we get to the walkways across the top. And as you can see, each one of these walkways only has lanterns at either end. There's no lights actually on the walkway. There are lights on either side of the walkways, on the sides of them, so that should hopefully be enough light, but it's not impossible on the longer stretches of walls, such as that bit over there and that one over there, that we might get the occasional mob spawning up there. But because we've got a block and a half of height above the walkway, nothing should be able to get up and then sort of get over and get into anything. So I'm pretty sure it's safe, and that means finally I don't have to worry about all of the villagers in this area being completely dead by the time I've finished working in this area, and I can actually get on with what we came to this area for, which of course was to make a much more efficient and much more interesting version of this little sand farm, which has been running while I've been here, but of course it ran out of gravel a while ago, so hasn't really done a great deal. Whew, on with the video. And the first thing I need to do in this video is figure out exactly what we're going to be producing in this desert. So I've made a list. And in my sand factory, we're going to be turning gravel into sand, of course, generating some sandstone as well as some smooth sandstone, because I like those blocks. We're also going to be smelting some sand into glass, creating stained glass using some dye washing, and then we're going to also craft some windows. And there are a huge variety of windows in this pack, but I particularly like the industrial iron, which can actually then be washed into the weathered iron windows. So they're the ones I want mostly. We're also going to wash some sand and get some clay, which we can then turn into bricks, and then we're going to turn some sand into some soul sand, which we can actually then use to make scoria and scorchia. Scoria is just a case of smelting some soul sand, and then we can actually dye wash that with some black dye to make the scorchia, which can then be used to make dusk bricks and some other things as well. And then, of course, the other thing we could make with sand is concrete, but as you see here, I've written no, and that's because I don't really use it, and it's a lot of effort making all of the different dye farms just to make blocks of things that I don't use. so we'll worry about dye farms later on if I actually want to use dyes in bulk for doing other things. But because stained glass can be achieved just by dye washing normal glass, you only actually need one bucket of each of the colours of dye to make an infinite number of stained glass. So I do not need dye farms right now, which is a good thing even though we're in a desert with cactuses. And cactuses are useful. Cacti, yes, cactuses. The flower's not really used for much other than making pink dye, and you can actually mix it down above a blaze burner to make biomass, which could be handy in the future, I guess. But realistically, we're never going to have enough of these just to generate a lot of biomass. But of course, cactuses themselves can be smelted down into green dye very easily and also be used to make biomass. And believe it or not, dead bushes can also be used to make biomass. And in order to get dead bushes, we just need to wash some red sand. And red sand we can actually get from sand, which is quite annoying. That's terracotta, which we're going to be doing in a whole different area to this one, so we don't need to worry about dead bushes. But we could set up some form of biomass generator over here. But why would we want to do that? You can make it from sticks. What is biomass used for? Well, you can turn it into biomass pellets, and those can be used to make biomass pallets. But they can also be used as fuel. You can also turn it into biofuel if you've got some sugar and cinder flour. And you can also turn it into copper spools of festive lights. Don't ask me why, but you can. Biofuel, of course, can be used to superheat blaze burners, which is very good for doing superheated things. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves with all of that. Let's concentrate on the easiest stuff for now, which is turning gravel into sand, generating sandstone, smooth sandstone, glass, stained glass, windows, clay, soul sand, scoria, scorchia, and no concrete. How hard could it be? What could possibly go wrong? In order to do this, we're going to need a ridiculous amount of sand, and currently we have very little gravel. And that's because our gravel machine is completely dependent on how much andesite we have, which is not much use. So first of all, what we need to do is hop on my wonderful train, which means I need to turn it round and put it onto the other track, grab myself a package to my wood station, and then I can pop that into a barrel on the train. No, I can't. Then I can pop that into a barrel on the train. No suitable path to the destination. What? But we've been there loads, mate. Has somebody blown up our tracks somewhere? Who's not having any? Oh, jeez, jeez, fine. You're on strike, are you? Typical of the railway services to go on strike. I shall go there myself then, using my fancy jetpack. Jeez, can't believe he's gone on strike already. Used it about 3 times. Anyway, as I was saying, my gravel machine. My gravel comes from my cobblestone pit, which then gets turned into gravel and then gets turned into andesite. But once my andesite is too full, then my gravel stops being processed and I don't get any more gravel. So what I've had to do is basically tell it I want even more andesite than I have so that we can start stocking up on some gravel. Which now I've managed to fill up this ender chest, but we've got none in there, and that's because we're actually using it for other things. So there's a couple of things we could do. We could modify this entire setup to get more gravel out of it, or I could stop the things that are using all of the gravel that I really don't need right now. And that, of course, is going back to my train. Thanks to my train driver, I can't go there, so I'll just fly back again over my wonderful new sand castle thing. Oh, they're having a meeting here. You're not talking about me again, you lunatics. And here we are at my train, which is currently turning all of that gravel into sand in order to then get turned into gold and iron and things like that. And, well, I've got enough iron and gold now. We don't need these running for a while. We've got another 112 blocks of gold in there, plus a whole bunch of gold in there. Iron, we've got absolutely tons of iron in here. Another 344 blocks within there, as well as a whole bunch in the ender chest. And if I go back to my farm area... Come on, train, are you going to let me go to my farm area? Please tell me you can go there. Put the package in there. Hey, all right, we can go past the wood station to my farm station. Everything's fine. I guess the strike is over, that's good. Oh, it's because my station's pointing in the wrong direction. Of course, that makes sense. And over here at my farming area, of course, I have another iron farm, which just sits generating even more iron. So yes, I've got another, only 48 blocks of iron in here. I guess isn't chunk loaded anymore. But anyway, we've got a ridiculous amount of gold and iron. Way more than I need right now, so we don't need to worry about having my gold and iron farms running all the time. Although it probably would be a good idea to generate even more gravel. What do you think, driver? Good talk. So for now, all I'm going to do is disconnect the train from the power line so we're not using any of the gravel. We can then accumulate a whole bunch of gravel while we're working over here in this area, which means when we're ready to start the farm, we should have a good amount to start with. And that leads me on, what should I build first? Well, the sand factory would make sense, wouldn't it? But that means I'm going to need to build a big old factory, and I've just spent all of that time building a big old sandcastle, and I'm kind of built out today. Oh, no thank you, I thought you was a cactus. I thought you were a cactus. And because this video has taken me so long to make already, doing all of that castle builds, as well as having a whole bunch of fun things going on at home, like, well, my heating stopping working and my audio equipment stopping working all of a sudden, I think it's time for me to go. Until next time.